Robert Whittaker versus Marvin Vettori is the co-main event of UFC Fight Night Paris. Gane versus Tuivasa, and I can't wait for this co-main event. It's a massive matchup in the middleweight division. Honestly, if it wasn't a heavyweight bout in the main event, I would say that this one would maybe take the main event spot, but because they're heavyweights, they're going to be in the main event spot. But this is a massive matchup. Both guys are big names in the middleweight division, of course. You've got Marvin Vettori. He's beaten a lot of good guys in that division, and he's fought for the belt before against Israel Adesanya, but lost. But he's also had some, reasonably close fights with Israel Adesanya. They haven't really aged too well, in all honesty, because we start to find out over time that Israel Adesanya's game plan recently has been to kind of, just be that slight bit better than his opponents. So I don't know if that's Marvin Vettori really being that competitive with Israel Adesanya more than maybe Israel Adesanya just barely doing enough to win, which is what he's been doing recently against guys like Jared Cannonier, even Yoel Romero, and you could say the same about the Whittaker bout. But in my opinion, in that Whittaker rematch, you've got a guy in Robert Whittaker here in this matchup who's a former champion of the middleweight division and arguably, and still the champion of the middleweight division. You could argue that. I know he lost the first fight by KO, but he pretty clearly, in my opinion, won the second fight. And a lot of people were saying stuff like, here are the strike numbers. Like that means anything in a round-by-round scoring system when every single strike is different and some weigh in more than others. In my opinion, in rounds 2, 4, and 5, Robert Whittaker landed the more effective strikes, the more damaging strikes. And in the rounds where it was close, where round 5, he clearly won on damaging strikes and more effective strikes. In the rounds where it was close in round 2 and 4, he scored a takedown in round 2 and landed a couple of punches. That's the difference maker in round 2, in my opinion. And in round 4, he got a takedown that ended up with him on the back of Israel Adesanya looking for a rear naked choke. So I think that was the difference maker in that round as well, along with him landing the more effective and damaging shots in those rounds. So it's very interesting to me. I really like this matchup. It's annoying that Whittaker has lost twice to Israel Adesanya technically on paper, because now you've got him talking about moving up to light heavyweight. But does he get past Marvin Vettori? I believe he does. I really believe he does. I like Marvin Vettori. I just think there isn't a better matchup in the top 5 for Robert Whittaker right now than Marvin Vettori. I honestly believe, yeah, he could beat Paulo Costa, Robert Whittaker. I think he would probably beat everyone, including Israel Adesanya in a trilogy, because, again, he's the younger guy. He's going to be making those more rapid improvements. I know he's had a long time in his career, but I know he acts like he's a lot older than Adesanya, but he's a much younger guy than Adesanya, so he's still got a lot of time to go in his career. But when you look at the top of the middleweight division, pick a better matchup for Whittaker than Marvin Vettori. That's why I feel like maybe this was the co-main event instead of the main event, because maybe they see the main event clash as being a bit more of like a sudden finish, maybe. Like if Tuivasa pulls off the upset, of course they're heavyweights, but Tuivasa could pull off a crazy upset, or Gane's going to school him. I feel like they're expecting this to be like a bit of a clinic from Whittaker over 3 rounds, and they didn't want to make that a 5-rounder if they could avoid it, or maybe they just don't want to have... They just wanted to have like a reserve main event just in case, because it's their first event in Paris. Maybe that's what it was as well. But I believe Robert Whittaker's going to score Marvin Vettori. I'm looking at the top of the middleweight division. Jared Cannonier is still dangerous. I believe Whittaker broke Cannonier's forearm in the second round with a kick in that fight, and Cannonier still was dangerous in that fight. I think you could have it 29-28. I can't remember which round Cannonier won. I think it was round 1. You can go to Cannonier. Round 2 was Whittaker, and then round 3 was Whittaker as well, but Cannonier had a moment in round 3 where he clipped Whittaker too, so that's a dangerous matchup for Whittaker. Who knows how good Cannonier is going to consistently be, because he is a lot older than the rest of the guys in that division. But I think Whittaker would beat Brunson. So I think maybe that's an argument for an easier matchup for him. But out of people that he hasn't really fought, or people that are still in their prime and still at the top of the division, which I don't see Brunson as, I think that he's got a great chance here against Marvin Vettori. Paulo Costa would be a problem for him. I think he would beat Sean Strickland. I think he would beat Jack Hermansson. But out of the top 4, top 3, you're looking at Marvin Vettori as like a basic boxing style that Whittaker can really easily figure out with his high IQ in boxing. And I think that's something that's massively improved in Whittaker's game. And that's why I'm definitely picking him in this matchup. Because if you don't know, and you don't pay attention to Whittaker, Whittaker's been training with like high-level boxing talent in Australia recently. He's been doing a lot of work with real boxers. And I noticed this. I saw an interview of him responding to like some former Australian rugby or footy player, whatever they call it, AFL or something like that. A former player over there who beat Mark Hunt in a boxing match. Then called out Robert Whittaker, and Whittaker was saying, listen, I've been doing boxing, like I'm really working on my boxing, and I think we saw that improvement against Israel Adesanya, because he went from not really being able to land a glove clean on Israel Adesanya to being patient and actually exposing Israel Adesanya's boxing, in my opinion. That's what I saw in that fight. I saw a guy in Robert Whittaker who has a 63.5-inch reach, 73.5-inch reach, fight a guy in Adesanya who had an 80-inch reach, and I saw Whittaker out-jab him every step of the way and land check hooks on him and then snap his head back on multiple occasions. I feel like Whittaker's boxing's massively improved, and that's the thing that Vittori brings to the table, is his boxing. He doesn't really bring too many kicks. Occasionally he'll go for a knee if he notices someone bolting in against him quite a bit, but he really just boxes. Like, if you want, name something that Vittori does. Name a combination that Vittori does. 1-2. With Whittaker, it's a lead uppercut head kick, a 1-2 head kick, his signature move. A teep to the body, followed by a left hook behind it, you know, like you'll flash the front kick to the face and then throw like a lunging left hook behind it, you know. I just feel like Whittaker's hands have gotten so much better. We saw it against Kelvin Gastelum. We then saw it against Israel Adesanya in the rematch. And he's taken on a guy who predominantly just boxes with little to no hand speed. He's a tough guy. He's durable. He trains really hard. He's good at seeing shots coming. He's actually quite defensively responsible in there. He brings his guard up a little bit more like Poirier at times with the Poirier guard that he has. And he also like sees shots coming here and there. His head movement isn't the best, but it's enough to sort of get him out of danger. And he meets a lot of shots with his forehead rather than getting clipped on the chin. Unbelievable chin, toughness, durability, passion for the sport, but Whittaker's just better. He's just way more talented in the boxing realm, way faster hands. You could say he might be overlooking Vittori by looking at like heavyweight and stuff like that, but I still think he wins. And I think he wins this one 30-27, and his grappling's good. I don't see Vittori really being able to do too much in the grappling realm to Robert Whittaker. He got down Adesanya for a second and had his back for a moment, but then gave it up, and Adesanya was able to turn out of it and end up on top and stuff like that. But I'm thinking about Robert Whittaker's grappling and the scrambles that we see against guys like Yoel Romero, Jacare Souza, Derek Brunson. This guy's got really, really good defensive grappling. So if you want to look at the grappling aspect of this fight, sure, Vittori shoots more often than Whittaker, in fact twice as much as Whittaker does, because Vittori implements grappling a lot more into his game than Whittaker does. But Vittori's takedown defense, we know it's so good, but it's 76% against, you know, Hermansson is the best grappler he's faced, who is a good grappler, but, you know, we've seen people shut down the grappling of Jack Hermansson. And then we look at Whittaker's. Vittori's is 76%. Whittaker's is 83% against Brunson, Jacare, Romero twice. Like, different levels of grapplers in that division that he's shutting down takedowns from. So I don't see Vittori getting him down. I don't see him keeping him down. And I definitely don't see him outboxing or outstriking Whittaker across the 3 rounds. And another thing, you would want to see like finishing ability from Vittori if you were going to pick him to win this one. If you think he's outskilled, you'd want to go to the next sort of rung down the ladder and go, okay, well, he can't win this way. Could he get the KO or finish? He just doesn't seem to be able to. He just doesn't seem to be able to get finishes, really. Like, I know he dropped Hermansson, but he shattered Hermansson's orbital in that fight. In round 1, Hermansson was out for a long time after that fight with a shattered orbital. And Vittori, after round 1 of shattering Jack Hermansson's orbital bone, still couldn't put him away. He hit him with a lot of good shots, and people have put away Hermansson and hurt him, and, you know, Cannonier put down Hermansson, but Cannonier's a big power puncher, but it just, even with a shattered orbital, Vittori's continually landing shots on that face, and he's not putting away Hermansson. and he's not putting away anyone. And he lands shots on Costa, and Costa just sort of chuckles at it and laughs it off and then swings big power back. And Vittori's tough enough to where, like, his lack of power isn't a problem for him because he's basically unfinishable himself. But, like, even against Kevin Holland, he didn't really land anything too effective on him and won it by sort of stalling out on the ground and landing some total strikes here and there. And I just don't really like this matchup for Vettori in any way. I don't see finishing ability from him here. I don't see him getting a submission. I don't see him getting a KO. He's going to have to box with Whittaker for 3 rounds on the feet. I think a decision bet is good. I think that'd be really good odds if you want to make some money. Putting some money on this fight going by decision. Or maybe putting some money on this fight going, you know, Whittaker by decision. If you want to make some crazy money. I don't know what the odds are, but I would, yeah, Whittaker by KO is crazy odds, but we've seen crazier things happen. Eventually, chins do go, so, you know, it's not bad. You know, I wouldn't mind the idea of it. 1-2 head kick, lands perfectly, rocks Marvin Vettori, and then he does it again. We've seen that against Jacare Souza. Once he sets a pattern on you, 1-2 head kick, he'll throw something off and then go back to the 1-2 head kick and land it again. There's only so many flush head kicks you can take in your career, Marvin. But I feel like the best bet to say is Whittaker by decision. Put down 10, get back 18.5. Not really much to go off of here. I mean, I guess you could maybe try out picking Vittori. I just don't think it's a good bet. I don't think he's good enough. If he shows massive improvements and beats Whittaker and shows an improvement in power, we've got another contender to watch out for, and maybe it is time for Whittaker to sort of, you know, move up to light heavyweight, try out fighting Anthony Smith and other opponents in his career rather than focusing on the middleweight division. But I truly believe Whittaker's the best middleweight on earth. I think he beat Israel Adesanya in the rematch, and I think that's going to show here. Vettori could barely land gloves on Adesanya on the feet. And I know it's different styles, but I think it just speaks to the fight IQ of the two of them. Vettori couldn't figure out Adesanya on the feet for anything, but Whittaker was consistently figuring him out and exposing him with like a 7.5-inch reach disadvantage, out-jabbing Israel Adesanya. He genuinely, to me, exposed Adesanya's boxing. So I feel as though Vettori's going to lose. Decision, 30-27 Whittaker. And then we're going to see Whittaker dip up and fight Anthony Smith. I think that's his move. And I think when he talks about moving up to light heavyweight, he's not thinking about, oh, give me Ankleev. I bet you he ain't. He's not saying, oh, yeah, Jamal Hill, please. I really don't think these are the matchups he's looking for. I believe we're looking at Whittaker thinking to himself, I could beat Anthony Smith. And if Glover gets KO'd by Yuri again, or if Glover gets KO'd by Yuri, and he takes a bunch of damage and he still wants to stick around and he's at number 1 in the division still, maybe number 2 at worst, I could beat Glover maybe. You know what I mean? There's some okay matchups for him at light heavyweight, and just winning there would do wonders for his legacy anyway. So I'd like to see him try it out if he can get past this one, or take some time, maybe build up a little bit of muscle that's still reversible if you want to stay at middleweight afterwards. See what happens in the Adesanya-Pereira matchup, because I think Pereira's going to beat him. So we'll see what happens there. But yeah, people are really like joking at the idea of Whittaker moving to light heavyweight. He's a big guy, and I really want to see like a big ball of muscle jump in and out with like really fast footwork and really fast hands at light heavyweight, because again, I think he beats Anthony Smith. Anthony Smith's not too much of a Goliath in that division. He used to be a middleweight himself, of course, couldn't even make the rankings. So I think the Anthony Smith fight is approachable, especially after he's coming off an injury, getting older. Whittaker's still young. People really forget about this, but Whittaker is still a young guy for the division. I'll just check how old he is right now. Robert Whittaker is, I believe, 32. 31. Robert Whittaker's 31 and he turns 32 in December. So he's got the whole year of being 32 still in his prime. And you've got guys like Anthony Smith, who's had their damage in their career, just injured his leg again, and has had a bunch of injuries in fights here and there that he claims to have had. He's 34. You know what I'm saying? Like, different ages. I feel like Whittaker could move up and do something there, and then maybe try out Glover Teixeira. I don't know. Like and subscribe. Thank you for watching. Toodle pip. I'll see you later. Goodbye. Robert Whittaker by decision. But if Vettori wins, then Vettori wins. Good for him. He's shown some improvements. I just hope he wins without, like, fluking it in some random way. Whittaker's the better fighter. He wins this fight 8 out of 10 times. Goodbye. See you later.